All
This
right, folks, so we're
conference will
starting
now be
class,
recorded.
and so I'm starting to record right now, so please, shh. All right, so we're going to be finishing up this chapter, chapter 8, regarding blood, okay? And so we're going to finish up the chapter, but wanted to start off with, are there any questions regarding anything so far? So know that this week, so this Thursday, right? So tonight, 5 o'clock until midnight on Sunday night. That's when you have time to do the endocrine quiz. So the endocrine quiz is online, and you have time to do that. That's in unit, I think it's in unit 2 of My Warren, okay? So it's only 20 questions, and so you'll have like about 30 minutes to do it, okay? So just let me know if you have any questions or any issues, any problems. I do, sometimes it gets a little hectic for me on the weekends, but still send me an email if you have a problem, if the quiz closes, because I'll reopen it for you. Yes? No. Remember, all I did was I passed out that paperwork, and what did it say? It said just copy the work. Yeah. Yeah. Just copy it. That's all. Yep, just copy it.
Online, right?
What's that?
That is online, but we don't have to do it online.
No, I want it. So those that are in class, I want it. You want you to show it to me here, okay? Yeah. So you don't have to. So don't worry about that now. As long as you have that for me on Tuesday, I'll look at next week. I'll look at that, okay? So the endocrine disorders, it's just copy work. It's just trying to help you understand and learn it a little bit more prior to taking the quiz, okay? All right, so let's look at chapter 8 here and finish up what we're looking at. And so what I want you to realize and understand is that blood work can be done in order to determine how different organs are functioning. In particular, we're concerned about our kidney and our liver. So our liver is involved in detoxification. It plays a very crucial and important role. Without a proper liver functioning, without your kidneys functioning, you will die. So this is why people are on transplant lists, right, in order to receive organ transplantation. So having an understanding as far as how they're both functioning, it's a big deal. And understand this, that if you're taking medications, if you're dealing with some type of different diseases, pathologies and such, understanding what's going on as far as kidney and liver function is very important, because certain diseases can attack the kidneys and the liver. Certain diseases, certain medications can affect how the kidneys and liver are functioning. And we want to know that in advance until we get to the point where you're needing dialysis, you're needing issues with transplantation, right? Organ transplantation. So really very important. So blood testing and such is very important. Now, people who live at high altitude have more red blood cells. This is interesting, right? So at higher elevations, those of us that are not normally living in a high elevation, it can be a little bit difficult for us to breathe, or doing sports and such like that. So athletes that are going to go, like say Mexico City, is that higher elevation? It is. And so if they have to go and they might go and train there prior to be participating in certain activities and sports events that are going to be held there, right? But in the United States, we have areas that we can also train at higher elevation. So really important to understand that. So athletes will train to increase their endurance. Some differences between men and women you'll see here as far as different levels of certain chemicals and certain substances and electrolyte. So let's look at creatinine. You probably heard of this before, especially if you've heard of people involved in exercising, weightlifting and such, and wanting to do supplementation, okay? So you'll see here, creatinine, it's a waste product produced by muscles from the breakdown of a compound called creatine. Creatine's main role, to enhance energy production in cells. That's a good thing, right? So to increase energy production, to increase ATP production that's required for cells to do their work, right? any type of activity, any type of process that requires energy, ATP plays an important role as far as providing energy. So it would make sense that, hey, we really do need creatine. So in high intensity exercise, creatine can improve performance up to 15%. That's pretty wild. That's pretty significant when you think about it. And when you're in competitive sports, honestly, you want to have as much of an edge as possible without cheating, right? Without, taking different other types of drugs and such. So here, it can also help you gain muscle and strength. And so this is something that people will absolutely do and use. It's not something that's just abnormal. Many people will do this. Let me move on with my online class for a moment here, just show them. So here we have, as far as this is the slide that I was just reviewing and going over. And so seeing here as far as that creatine improving performance up to 15%, that's a big deal. This next slide here within your PowerPoint, so you're seeing it's showing you and just kind of giving you a little bit of visual here. So creatinine, a chemical waste molecule that is created from the muscle metabolism. So your muscles working, exercising and such, this is a waste product. So creatinine is transported through the bloodstream to the kidneys, right? Kidneys filter out most of the creatinine and dispose of it in the urine. So as a result of muscles doing their work, doing their job, right? Exercise, as far as contracting and such, creatinine is produced. So what happens when those levels are high? And they're apples. What was that? Yikes. I don't know. All right, so creatinine. So levels are too high. So here's the drill. Shortness of breath, nausea, vomiting, dry skin, headaches, loss of appetite, weight loss. This is prolonged. So if it's not being taken care of by the kidneys and removed from the kidneys, and we're having a buildup, so if your kidneys are not functioning like they properly should, can this lead to bad things? Yes, it can. Unfortunately, yes. Yeah. And we will talk about the kidneys in the urinary system, so that will be coming up soon. Here you're seeing in this next slide, it's just showing you some different tests, right? And so you're seeing here to determine as far as red blood cell count. And remember that the red blood cells, the erythrocytes, their levels, very high in comparison to all the other cells. So the white blood cell count, like 1%, okay? As far as the volume of blood and such. You'll see here as far as white blood cell count, like 1%, very small percentage. 45 to 50% for red blood cell as far as volume of present within blood, and platelets also even less than the white blood cells. But remember, the platelets are very tiny. They're little pieces of cells. And here you see as far as, and so different, this is just giving you some other blood tests and such, and you see here that the creatinine, right? So for kidney function and other related disorders, you see here as far as creatinine is concerned, right? So again, muscle metabolism, muscle working and such, contracting. And so we do this test to see those levels to see how the kidneys are functioning. And you'll see many other tests shown there. How about for A1C, as far as for blood sugar levels over extended periods of time for diabetes and other types of tests and such. How about at the very bottom there, TSH, to give us an idea as far as what's going on in the endocrine system, and in particular with the thyroid gland and its function. Right. Now this term hemostasis, right? It's the stoppage of bleeding. Okay, so prevents blood loss. So this is important. Excuse me. Prevents blood loss, helping to seal tears, punctures, any type of damage to blood vessels and such. Okay, so this is a very important thing that our body does well. And you recall last class there, we talked about those that have hemophilia and the two types, A and B, missing or low levels of clotting factors 8 and 9, respectively, with the A and B. Not a good thing, right? So to be able to have the ability to stop bleeding when any type of damage is taking place is very important. So you'll see here, blood vessel is ruptured, okay? And realize, you know, you've seen this on your own body. You'll have a bruise, right, as a result of hitting something or having a cut, right? There's that area where we're going to have vessels damaged. So initially what happens first, the vessel wall will contract in a spasm. This is important. This is just a part of the process of trying to stop the bleeding. It constricts the blood vessel for up to 30 minutes, and that contracture will help to limit the amount of blood passing through the vessel. Then we're going to have these special cells, these platelets, right, that are going to be involved in, they're going to be pulled to the area to make sure that we can close the hole, right, cover the gap where there's any type of damage and blood is seeping through. They'll clump together, creating this temporary plug, and then there's going to be chemicals that are going to be released to do what? To bring more of these platelets and other cells and also fibers to the area to heal that damaged vessel. So this is an example of, do you recall I said we were talking about positive and negative feedback? Remember?
Yeah.
This is that positive feedback. This is a good way that positive feedback helps us and protects us and maintains homeostasis. So you see here that there's chemicals that are released, serotonin, neurotransmitter, released to prolong spasm and attract more platelets. Again, we want to bring more to the area. And then the blood will coagulate into a gel, right? Instead of more liquid, it'll be turned into gel and it'll form this clot, right? So clotting is very important. After I discuss this, we're going to watch a short video on hemostasis here. So, all right. So other mechanisms of clot formation. So this intrinsic clotting mechanism. There's a protein, right, factor X in the blood, plasma. Remember, plasma is the liquid portion of the blood. Activated and triggers reactions that produce thrombin. Thrombin enzyme acts on fibrinogen. So remember that there's like fibers are going to be a part of this whole clotting mechanism to help to seal the damage. Then what will happen is that this causes the fibers to stick together into a net that entangles blood cells and platelets. Do you see how they, like, not only are they drawn to the area of damage, but they're like held there via these fibers and such, and this net that's created as a result. So the entire mass will form this blood clot, and in turn then draw the torn walls of the vessel back together. Very important. Now, the term thrombus is the technical term that's used for a clot. The term thrombus, okay? Now, let's move on to the next slide for just a moment here. And here you're seeing step by step what's going on. There's an injury to a blood vessel, so there's some type of damage. There's a hole, there's a gap, all right? The walls of the vessel contract, so there's a spasm that takes place first. Then platelets that are being drawn to the area stick to the fibers that are present there, creating this plug, right? And then more permanent clot forms as time goes on, as more fibers and clot and the platelets are brought, and also blood vessels can be a part of this all. They're all drawn in together to seal this. Let's go back for a moment. So again, the term thrombus is a clot. So the term thrombosis. So what you're seeing here is that, so an extrinsic clotting mechanism is triggered by the release of substances outside of the blood. So damaged blood vessel triggers the formation of this thrombin. The remainder of the process proceeds like the intrinsic. So it's very similar to what's going on, stopping of the bleeding. This is important, right? And so multiple mechanisms that can be taking place here in order to make sure that we prevent loss of a lot of blood, okay? Now, the term embolus. Okay? So if thrombus is a clot, then an embolus is a clot that's moving, right? So we form this clot, and then it starts to move. So that's not a good thing, right? So my mother just had a knee replacement only like Tuesday. On Tuesday, she was in the hospital. and she's just recovering now. And she actually, they sent her home yesterday. So there's like a day and you're gone. But one of the key issues is that they want to prevent you from getting sick for being in the hospital because there's so many germs and such. So what is one of the concerns when someone has a major operation like that and she's 81 years old, right? So they want to prevent clots forming, and then clots not only forming, but then traveling to other areas of the body, like that, to the lungs, to the heart, to the brain, that could cause death, right, or major damage. Yeah. Healing from it? Treatment? Treatment, yeah. So there are different types of treatments that they'll do, indeed, yeah. And so you're right, that's the terminology and such. I limit how much terms I use. I try to in the class, just so that I don't overwhelm people. But I still try to give you information. But yeah, so it's very important that then, right, so, and there are different therapies that can be done also, right, as far as trying to thin the blood and prevent the blood from forming these clots and such. And so important factors here that go on and such. So remember, thrombus, clot. When the clot's moving, embolism, okay? So embolus, and then the embolism, this is the problem, can occur. So when the embolus, that moving clot, gets stuck, that's the embolism, right? So that's a problem. The embolism occurs in the heart, lungs, or brain if the clot shuts down the organ's blood supply. So what happens when, so look at this for a moment here. So we have, so here's our brain. So take a look at our brain. Here's our brain. There's a vessel going to an area of the brain. If we block the flow of blood to that area of the brain, sorry guys. If we block blood flow to the area of the brain as a result of this moving, the thrombus is a clot. When it's moving, it's an embolus. When it blocks a vessel, it's an embolism. Now, any of the blood that's going to that area of the brain, can that die? Yes, that's very bad, okay? How about to the heart? Any area of the heart where this blood is flowing to and it's blocked, that's a problem. And when cardiac tissue dies, when the brain tissue dies, nervous tissue dies, it's not replaced with nervous tissue. It's not replaced with heart tissue. It's just scar formation and such, and not good things happen. Okay, so a stroke can involve this embolus, this moving clot, and this can lead to lack of blood flow to an area of the brain. This can be not only just damaging areas of the brain, but also this can cause death, severe enough, and depending upon where it's blocking blood flow, or it can affect, so remember this, right? So right side of the brain controls what side of the body?
Left.
So then the left side of the brain controls the right side of the body. So if I have an embolism, right, in my brain on the right side, can that affect what goes on as far as the left side of the body and like affecting how I walk and such? Absolutely. So, and can be mild or mild, moderate, severe, right? Depending upon the person and depending upon the damage that's taking place. All right. So let's, what I'm going to do, folks, is I'm going to, all right, let's see here. We're going to stop sharing the screen for a moment here. Okay. There we go. All right, shh, please, folks. No talking, please. All right, so we have a video that I'm going to show you all on hemostasis first. Here we go. All right, so I'm going to shut off the lights here in the room. Shh, please.
Blood coagulation. Before we start the topic blood coagulation, let us take a glance of components of the blood. Red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets collectively constitute 45% of blood. Rest 55% of blood contains
Thanks.
fibrinogen contain a natural process to start bleeding from minor cuts in a matter of several minutes. When a small artery is cut, the collagen fibers in its tissue are exposed, which signal the clotting process to begin. As platelets begin to adhere to the cut edges, they release chemicals to attract platelets attached to fibrinogen. The immobilized fibrinogen attracts the factor of blood coagulation. The factors of blood coagulation transform the fibrinogen in polymers of fibrin. Thrombokinase is an enzyme complex that is required for this reaction. This complex is formed by a series of linked enzymic reactions, cascade process, involving a number of factors present in the plasma in an inactive state. After the formation of fibrins, molecules of plasmins start to get attracted to fibrin net. Later on, these molecules destroy the fibrin net. The fibrinolytic degradation products are phagocyted by macrophages and eosinophils.
Let's put another one on here.
Hemostasis is the normal physiological response to limit blood loss after vascular injury. Blood clots are made up of activated platelets, red blood cells, and fibrin, which hold the clot together. The process is mediated by around 30 proteins, which are known as clotting factors. Platelet activation and aggregation begins when vascular injury.
Remember those clotting factors, that's what's missing from those that have hemophilia.
Exposes collagen and von Willebrand factor from within the vessel wall to the blood. Platelets adhere to these proteins and become partially activated, changing shape and releasing signaling molecules which recruit more platelets to the site. At the same time,
See, by those platelets being activated and going to the damaged vessel, again, like I said, so we want more platelets to come to the area. So they send these signaling chemicals that will draw almost like breadcrumbs to, like if you're out and about and you drop little breadcrumbs as you walk on a trail to just see your trail, and hopefully no birds will come and eat the breadcrumbs. But following that trail, that's what the platelets do in order to come to the area and heal the area, heal that, bring about hemostasis.
Factor triggers initiation of the coagulation cascade, the process that leads to full activation of platelets and the generation of fibrin and clot formation. Vascular injury causes tissue factor on the outside of cells in the vessel wall to come into contact with factor 7A and factor 10A in the blood, leading to the production of a small amount of thrombin. This thrombin fully activates platelets and triggers a cascade of clotting factors that activate each other, culminating in factor 10A mediated generation of a larger burst of thrombin production on the platelet surface. One molecule of factor 10A leads to the formation of 1,000 molecules of thrombin. Thrombin converts the soluble protein fibrinogen into insoluble fibrin strands at the site of vessel injury, while at the same time activating factor 13 protein to cross-link the fibers. The fibrin mesh stabilizes the clot and traps more platelets and red blood cells, facilitating its growth.
So now, let's come back to that image here, right? So is this giving you more information that you need? Absolutely, yeah. But I want you to see though that, do you see how it's a very complex thing that goes on just to stop the bleeding of this tiny blood vessel, right? There's a lot of things that are happening and taking place in order for this to take place. Okay. Let's finish this video.
Facilitating its growth. In normal physiological conditions, the process of clot breakdown or fibrinolysis begins as the structural integrity of the vessel wall is restored. Endothelial cells begin to secrete a protein called tissue plasminogen activator, which activates the protease plasmin to degrade fibrin, dismantling the structure of the clot and restoring the integrity of the vessel.
Okay, so what that's showing you is that what's the inside of the blood vessel, the lining of the blood vessel is called the endothelium. That's just a name we use for the inner lining of a blood vessel. And what's going on is that if we have this clot present, do you always need the clot once the tissue is healed? No, you don't. So then this way we have to have a process also of breaking it down and reusing those structures and such, and those that what all constituted the clot. So let's see. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about sickle cell anemia and malaria in a few minutes. Let's go back to here. Okay. Okay. So let's, folks that are online, let me just share my screen with you all again. Okay. All right, so we're at this wound healing. Do you recall that I said to you that a type of white blood cell is called a monocyte, right? A monocyte. It's a very big white blood cell. And what happens is over about a week period of time, it'll change and become what's called a macrophage. And how many of you know that game Pac-Man or Miss Pac-Man, right? You know that, right? The waka 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 right thing. And so what's going on is that like it eats those little dots, right? Well, how about think about a macrophage? It's very similar to like a Pac-Man or Miss Pac-Man in that it eats, it processes, it phagocytizes these old blood cells, as well as other like bacteria and different bacteria-infected cells and other types of cells that are no longer good or that can make you sick. The macrophages are the cleanup crew. They are the ones that will go in and eat them up, so to speak. So wound healing, right? We've got the clot. Then what happens? We've got the scab, and then what's going to happen is over time, you need to then have the clot removed, and so we have to break it down and such, right? So now take a look here as far as the wound healing and as far as scab formation. And you're seeing here as far as that the multiple layers of the epidermis, that outer layer of skin. Well, the problem is, right, that people end up messing around with like scabs and such. And yeah, it can be, but then like if you don't let it to like it gets to the point where it fully heals, starts to bleed and starts to get all irritated, right? All right, now blood donation. So 1 pint of blood donated helps save 3 lives. That's pretty cool stuff, right? And so there's a process that goes on, and there's a screening that takes place in order to make sure that the blood supply and that the blood that you're willing to donate is healthy. Now, this next slide here is showing you regarding just the basic term of anemia. Okay? So anemia, and there are many different types of anemia you'll see there. iron deficiency. We talked about that. Pernicious anemia, plastic anemia. These are different types of anemia that can take place where it affects red blood cells. Now, if it affects red blood cells and red blood cell formation and how they function and such, this affects your ability to transport oxygen to the tissues of the body, and then also remove CO2 and the waste, and also transport nutrients and receive. So do you think that that's really important? Absolutely. So as far as the ability for the red blood cells, as far as not delivering the oxygen, because that's really the factor here that's important, transportation of oxygen, red blood cells, the erythrocytes, okay? Big deal. So malaria. Now, malaria causes this hemolytic anemia, and this is going to damage red blood cells, okay? It's going to damage red blood cells. That's a problem. And it's caused by this little critter that is transmitted, a protozoan that's transmitted by mosquitoes and a mosquito bite. And depending upon where you are in the world, this could be a major problem. So I'm going to share with you now a little bit of information regarding this, and I think you'll find it interesting and a little icky, but let's take a look. So there's two videos, folks. So if we can just not talk while it's going on so everybody can hear, and two videos about 4 minutes each. So let me get the online class set up so that they can watch this also. Yes.
After this is done.
Two videos.
Mosquitoes are usually vegetarian, preferring to drink nectar, fruit juices, and honeydew. Only a pregnant mosquito will bite humans, seeking nutrients from blood to nourish her developing eggs. If she drinks blood from someone infected with malaria, she too becomes infected with the disease.
So pregnant female mosquito.
The tiny drop of blood filling the insect's stomach is teeming with malaria parasites. The parasite form that is deadly inside humans cannot survive in the mosquito's stomach and is slowly digested with the rest of her blood meal. However, back in the human host, a few of the parasites turned into a different type of cell, one that is sexual but remains dormant. Malaria sex is triggered when the warm human blood begins to cool inside the insect's stomach. The female form of the parasite matures into an egg. The male form takes a while longer to mature into sperm. This sperm is from an earlier feed. The fertilized cell can glide and begins to explore its new environment.
This is all again taking place inside the mosquito's stomach. That's the malaria. Now that it's a fertilized malarial cell.
It
It's
migrates
crazy.
to the outer lining
this
of the
is
mosquito's
crazy.
stomach
It's going to
before
exit.
transforming into a cyst.
So this is in the mosquito, and that's in the external
Each
portion
cyst
of the
produces thousands of thin, tiny parasites
cyst.
which seek out and infest. the
Now you see
mosquito's
when they
salivary
burst
glands.
open, those little parasites are released from those cysts. And look at the mosquito. It's inundated with parasites. So where do those
The next time
parasites
this
go?
mosquito bites a victim, the malaria parasite will ride in with their saliva and infect another human.
So let me just give you an understanding, right? So we've got an infected mosquito. How did it become infected? Because a pregnant female took blood from a human that was infected with malaria. Understood? And now what's happening is that, do you see this cycle? It's a cycle. It's going to now infect someone else if they don't have malaria.
10% of people on Earth will be struck down with malaria.
10% of the planet. 10% of the planet, malaria. That's some pretty crazy stuff, right? Now, let me show you. Now, the next one is, let's go back. The human host. So watch this for the human host. It's much.
The malaria parasite is an ancient organism. It has been with us since before we were human. Famous victims include Alexander the Great, Genghis Khan, and George Washington. The malaria life cycle follows a devious path, swapping back and forth between mosquitoes and humans.
Back and forth between mosquitoes and humans.
This mosquito is infected with a malaria parasite. Because she is pregnant, she has become hungry for human blood. During the bite, she injects saliva to stop the blood from clotting. Her infected saliva also carries the malaria parasite.
See how it enters into the blood vessels of the
Parasite
human?
rides the bloodstream like a network of roads, seeking its first target. The core of your body's blood filter system,
The liver.
the liver. Sensing its arrival at the liver, the parasite searches for an exit.
Enters into liver cells.
A sentinel Kupffer cell is the entry point to liver tissue. Leaving the blood, the parasite infects a liver cell, killing one or more other cells on its way.
Now this is the kind of
Over
creepy
the next
part.
few days, the parasite undergoes hundreds of nuclear divisions, copying its DNA over and over again. A single infected liver cell
Do you see this
can
then?
create thousands of new parasites.
So all these parasites now are going to do what? The liver is highly vascular, a lot of blood flow.
The next
So-
generation of parasites are modified to infect a new target,
Now it's going to infect red blood cells in the human.
red blood cells.
There's an erythrocyte, a red blood cell. Passes through the plasma membrane of the red blood cell.
Inside a red blood cell, the parasite can hide from the body's immune system.
Did you hear what that just said? Yeah, let me just pause
The
that for a
parasite
moment.
slowly devours the contents of the infected cell and creates more parasites.
So do you see that the process here is to create more and more parasites that they exponentially will infect the human, right? And what's going on is that, what did it say about when it infects the red blood cell? It does what? It hides from the human's immune system. That's very, very bad. That's not a good thing.
The infected cell becomes sticky and grips onto blood vessel walls.
So that's an infected red blood cell,
The infected cell bursts, spreading more parasites through the bloodstream.
which will in turn infect more red blood cells. Do you see how this can go from little bit to
Suffer fever,
vast?
loss of blood, convulsions, brain damage, and coma.
Malaria is nothing to fool around with.
10% of people on Earth will be struck down with malaria. Countless millions have been killed by it. Most people who die from the disease are pregnant women and children under the age of 5.
There are medications. There are medications indeed. But what happens is that depending upon the person and such, as far as full cure and such, I don't know the full details regarding that, because there, in past, there would be treatment to help handle the symptoms and calm it down, but fully cure back many years ago, no. Now, more in recent times, I know that there are medications that are prophylactic. They prevent people from getting it done. But one of the key issues, folks, is that they have nets and different things and screens in order to prevent mosquitoes from biting you in the first place. That's a huge deal. Yep. All right. So let me go back to our PowerPoint.
No, literally, like I was getting stuff from bottles, so I was not. Can we have the light?
What's that? We want to sit on this side? Yeah, sit on that side, only because it affects what goes on as far as being able to see the screen. Thanks. All right. Okay, so let's move on. So first, I'm going to just show you the next slide here as far as all right. So this is showing you on your viewing left, normal red blood cells, erythrocytes, and then you're seeing here iron deficient red blood cells. So having a deficiency of iron is a big deal as far as being able to have the red blood cells be able to carry oxygen to the cells. That's a problem. This next slide here shows you an image of sickle cell anemia, and what goes on with those cells is that they can change shape. And when they change shape and become this sickle type shape, this is going to then have issues where not being able to carry oxygen like they properly should, and also getting stuck in small vessels that can cause pain, like tremendous pain. So this is not a fun thing to have to deal with as far as sickle cell anemia. And there is a correlation with, so look at this slide here next. It says hypothesis, right? So in malaria infected cells, the oxygen level is lowered enough to cause sickling, that changing of the shape of the cells, which kills the cell and destroys the parasite. And that's what they're thinking, is that it's predominant sickle cell anemia in those folks that live in the areas where sickle cell anemia, where malaria is present. And so kind of like an adaptation that occurred in order to handle and help people in those areas as far as with dealing with malaria. So having sickle cell anemia can be a positive thing for those that live in those areas that malaria is present. And here you're just seeing as far as the transmission cycle. We watched the video already. Now, I talked to you about the white blood cells, right? And how their role is involved in the immune system. And I'm going to also talk about it next chapter when we look at as far as the lymphatic system and also, well, actually not next, after we look at the heart. We'll be looking at the immune system and the lymphatic system and how this plays a role in keeping us protected from illnesses and such. So I talked to you about, remember last class I mentioned about Epstein-Barr virus, and I said as far as mononucleosis, right, that many of us have this, the Epstein-Barr virus present within, but not everybody gets sick, right? But some people do, and they come down with mono. HIV virus that attacks, in particular, helper T cells, which are involved in your specific immune response. And this is why people that have HIV, which can become AIDS, this is a problem, folks, because it affects their immune system, their specific immune system. It's very bad. And what will happen is that a virus will hijack a cell to produce more of the viruses and such. That's a bad thing. Leukemia we talked about, right? As far as having very high levels of white blood cells, not a good thing. Blood cancer. And really it affects those cells present in the red bone marrow that are producing the cells for your blood. Now you'll see here, as far as this is just giving you an idea regarding that Epstein-Barr virus and those that get sick with mono and the areas of the body that it's affecting. HIV, this is just giving you a little bit of some information. And so I made copies for all of you here as far as in bigger print so that you could just see it. You also have the digital copy that you're able to review. So let me just read the bullet points for you. So HIV facts. People on effective HIV treatment can't pass it on, okay? Number 2, HIV can't be passed on through day-to-day contact. 3, HIV can affect anyone. 4, people living with HIV can live long and healthy lives. And 5, there are many ways to prevent HIV, right? And so that's very true. And really, honestly, back in the day, like in the late 70s, 80s, early 80s, I'm trying to remember exactly, I don't remember when AIDS and HIV was determined that was causing people to get very sick and such. It affects many people's lives. I had an uncle who was in prison at the time and died from AIDS. Yeah, so like pretty, this affects, doesn't matter where you are in society, right? This is a terrible illness and such. Here, I showed you this last class. We talked about leukemia, so I'm gonna move on. And let's go here and see as far as, so the effects of carbon monoxide in bacteria. So CO, carbon monoxide. Remember I said to you that CO, carbon monoxide, is a very not good thing. It can kill you. It takes over the spots of present in the red blood cells that carry oxygen. Those sites present within the red blood cells can attract more to CO than to oxygen. So if there's a lot of carbon monoxide present, it'll poison you and it'll make you sick. That's where I'm saying right there. There's a higher affinity for CO than oxygen. So carbon monoxide poisoning symptoms, other than death, right? Because that's what can occur. Headache, feeling woozy, right? Not good. The term septicemia. So septicemia, bacteria release toxins that poison the blood. So staph, you've heard of a staph infection, right? So this is an example of Staph aureus, is a type of staph infection, and this can make a patient very sick. Toxemia. So different metabolic poisons present within the body. Now, if your kidneys are not functioning like they properly should, they cannot remove the toxic waste from the blood. There's going to be a buildup, preventing normal red blood cell production, synthesis, and replacement. And this can lead to all kinds of issues. Anemia develops, and the blood doesn't clot properly, and this can make a patient very, very sick. All right, folks, very good. So that's the end of our presentation today. So those of you online, please hold on.
This conference will now be recorded.
All right, folks, so I just want to discuss with you all regarding, this is for the benefit of those that are watching this video right now. I want to make sure that you're observing and watching, reviewing, and writing summaries of any classes that you miss and weren't able to attend as far as for the remote lecture. So all of you that are here right now, yeah, you don't have to do that. But if you miss the lecture, then you need to watch the recording and then write a summary and then post it in coursework. So there are some of you that have missed lectures and not posted, and so you need to do that, okay? So that's important because that acts as your attendance. Okay, so that's very important for you to view the video, write the summary, put it in coursework. You're not graded on it, but it's important as far as for us, as far as keeping it roll call, the attendance and such. Okay, very good. So that's all I have to say regarding at the end of this video. So let me stop recording.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, class. So I just wanted to continue on with this discussion and just talk to you a little bit about doing work as far as the discussion board. So I'm just going to show you as far as for our class, everybody needs to do the introduction and the discussion board. Okay, so let's look here. So if you just go to discussion board, scroll down, go to student introductions, and then you'll see here that there are multiple students that have posted, right? They just clicked right here, but not everybody has. So everyone in the class needs to do that. And then beginning next week, so let's go back here to discussion board. Beginning next week, I'm just going to have a topic that's going to be put up, and we're just going to have you just, read what I have to put here. And I'm going to put it in Unit 1. I'm going to post here, and then you're going to reply to it, okay? Very good.